Hello, welcome back. I'm Lori Williams. I am a psychic medium, energy healer, animal communicator, and spiritual teacher. Today, I want to talk to you about the difference between toxic love and unconditional love. So, first and foremost, I want to preface this video by saying there is actually no such thing as toxic love. If it's toxic, it's not love, it's actually the absence of love. Unconditional love is definitely um, the only true love that there actually is. Everything else is essentially is toxic. So where does toxic love come from? Unfortunately, we are not taught how to give unconditional love. We're also not taught how to receive it, and we really struggle typically with receiving. So it comes down to the what you don't know, or how can you teach what you don't know? Because essentially, like say going back to like great grandparents, it's like they're I don't like to use the word broken, but like they're fragmented parts of them based on their cultural beliefs or religious beliefs, their overall conditioning, and their beliefs of themselves and others, and also traumas as well. And then they went on to raise the next generation that way, and the next generation went on to raise the next generation that way, and so on and so forth. So until you actually come across a generation where someone has decided to do the work, um, and they end up like healing those generational aspects, um, typically the toxic love element is the part that is continually spread. Now that doesn't mean that unconditional love isn't interwoven in there, but for the most part, it's toxic love. And main reason why I want to do this video today too is because I'm seeing more and more people being, especially when it comes to self-love, of like, oh well, I love myself enough to, not talk to anybody that doesn't have the same values as me. And I just like that's not that's not unconditional love. That is actually what you're calling toxic, or unconditional love is actually toxic love. Because toxic love is about expecting people to be a certain way, to act a certain way. Now, for an example, if you are just like not in alignment with someone, you can practice unconditional love by letting them go, saying, you know what, I love you, but I just don't feel energetically aligned to you, because that is a real thing. Our relationships become a struggle when we're not aligned with the person that we're in the relationship with, whether it be an intimate relationship or a friendship, it doesn't matter. It could even be family. When you're not aligned with that person, it becomes a struggle, and it can become toxic too. So the best thing in some cases that you can do is to show unconditional love is actually to remove yourself from that person's life. That is still unconditional love. But, and especially if there's like abuse attached to that, 100%. You have to have unconditional love enough for yourself to be able to walk away from that, for sure. But it's when, like maybe someone shares a different political view, or someone shares a different religious view than you, and it's all of a sudden like, oh, well, I hate that person, or I hate that group of people, or whatever the case is. That's toxic love. That is not unconditional love at all. Toxic love, I would say, is makes up the majority, unfortunately, of the world that we live in. And I think each one of us as human beings need to step up and decide, are we going to be part of the problem or part of the solution? I personally, I try in all areas of my life to not add to the hate, to not add to the scarcity, or the scared energy, I should say, to not add to the lack energy, and to not jump on the bandwagon of, oh well, I believe this or I believe that. I am very discerning when it comes to what people or other people's opinions are, because unfortunately some of the greatest things that drive our society today started out as someone's opinion. um like a lot of like old wives tales, for an example. I remember, and I've talked about this recently in a post. I remember like hearing about growing up. It's like I remember my grandmother and my mother both had the belief that bad things happen in three. And it wasn't until a few years ago when I'm like, well, who said that bad things happen in three? And I even questioned my mom and my grandma. I was like, hey, where'd you guys hear that from? They're like, I don't know, we just kind of just heard it somewhere. And it's not just my family that has this belief, because I've heard it from like multiple people from multiple sources before I was in business and since then too, right? Like people from all over the world have this belief bad things happen in three. So I was like, but who said that it had to be like that? Why can't I define how um and that's ultimately, like, I was taught that as a form of like love. That's my mom trying to look out for me, but that's actually just, it's more fear, right? It's adding to the fear. So I decided, I'm like, no, I don't subscribe to that belief. That's not no longer a belief of mine. And ironically, like instantly, bad things stopped happening in three, just like that. I mean, it was magic. It's the same. Recently, even more recently, this whole Mercury retrograde thing of like, oh, well, your electronics are gonna fall apart, and you're gonna have problems with this, and you're gonna have problems with that. You know what? I treat Mercury retrograde the same as any other day or days. I have never had a problem. Now, back when I did actually aspire to that belief system, I ended up having to buy, in one Mercury retrograde, I had to buy two printers, a new computer, and one of our two vehicles was in the shop, all within like I think the 3 week span that Mercury was in retrograde. And I was like, if I keep having this belief, it's going to cost me a fortune. Like I need to get this under control, because I'm like, this is costing me like so much. So I changed the belief, and now I don't care if Mercury retrograde is every single day for the rest of my life. It's not going to affect me. Our our opinions on things, even though we think that it's helping or it's going to warn people of what's coming, it adds to that toxicity. It adds to, it's what I call that toxic love. It's like you might be well meaning and spreading it, but it's still causing, like, it still causes toxicity. Our world more than ever needs unconditional love, of I accept you and love you as you are, even if you're not meant to be in my life. That's cool. I still really wish the best for you. I will be here cheering you on. I hope you take the world and just like do amazing things in it. And I can actually truly be that person for everyone, whether I know them or I've met them or not. I can wish that for complete strangers, of showing that unconditional love. Because in a world that constantly shows you what toxic love looks like, I think it's a really beautiful thing to have people show up and show you what unconditional love looks like. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, but unfortunately, I was 32 years old before I learned exactly what unconditional love was. Um, and it was really, really hard to accept it, because I had a hard time with that. And like, I mean, this is nothing against my parents at all. I know my parents love me, and I know in a lot of ways that their love is unconditional. Um, but there's also a lot of ways where it is conditional, because it's fear based, right? So it's not conditional, it's toxic because it's fear based. So ultimately, it comes down to learning to accept everyone just as they are, and recognizing that not everyone is meant to be in your life, not everyone is aligned to be in your life, and letting all that be okay, but not hating people because of it, or because they have a different opinion than you. You don't have to hate them. They're still a human being. They still deserve an infinite amount of love. They don't deserve, I mean, gay, lesbian, black, white, I don't give a shit what color you are. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. If you're happy, I'm happy for you. That's it. I just want you to be happy. I have the same expectation for people in my life as I do for my kids. I don't, when my kids were born, I never stopped to think about all the things I wanted them to do in the world or who I wanted them to be. I just want them to grow up to be happy and decent people. Like, happy, decent people. That's it. That's my expectation. And that's my expectation of all of humanity, and people, like I said, whether I know them or not. Because I want to show people what unconditional love looks like. Unconditional love is, there's no fear, there's no judgment, there's no expectation. And the biggest thing is to be able to, not the biggest thing, but another part of it is being able to show unconditional love, even if you're not being shown unconditional love back. Because at the end of the day, how you respond is will show who you are, but how the other person, like if the other person's spewing hate at you, that shows you that they're full of hate. But if you continue to sit there and show them unconditional love, that is showing who you are. Who they are in accordance with yourself is irrelevant. You only have to concern yourself with who you are. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. I will see you back here next time. Until then, take care. Bye for now.